getting a presentation from a psychiatrist who is based in Townsville, and he's going to give us a very innovative presentation about the future. And I would expect you to be talking for about half an hour, 45 minutes, and then you're able to take questions. Is that fair?
Perfect.
Is that all right?
That's perfect, Dr. Cole.
And I'll leave all the rest to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming. AI, I guess, is the buzzword for 2023. It's been affecting all aspects of the world, and it's going to get more popular and more important. And my interest really is how we can integrate it and use it to improve psychiatric and medical treatment. A couple of declarations of interest. I have received monies from a number of drug companies. It's always a declaration of interest, but not for a while. I've not received any money from Dr. Cole. I have asked. I have no formal IT qualifications of any sort, except I play video games, and I was born the same year as Elon Musk. Therefore, take my presentation with a grain of salt. AI has been heavily involved in the making of this presentation, not just ChatGPT, search engines. AI is really integrated with a lot of systems we use. Some of the stuff I've just made up, but if it's wrong, I'm going to blame AI. Today we're going to talk about a bit of background. Mainly I'll focus on ChatGPT, only because I can't really explore all AI technologies, and that's what I'm most interested in. We'll overlap with a few other AI ideas, but mainly it'll be about ChatGPT. Talk about benefits, potential uses. We'll talk about just practical stuff, how I'm using ChatGPT already, and you can decide whether you can adapt it to your practice, however you see fit. Introduction, ChatGPT the 4th, this should be GPT-4, was launched in September 2022. 3 months later, it was the most downloaded, high-selling consumer app of all time, which is really quite phenomenal. And an array of new generative AI software is following, Google's following, Microsoft's following. We're going to have more and more of these products available. And the speed of change has caught many organizations and institutions off guard. Schools, academic institutions have all had to come up with new policies on the fly. I talked to the Dean of JCU, and they've had to suddenly come up with new policies and procedures. And to some degree, medicine is a bit behind the 8 ball. I was doing a search and I could not find any policies, procedures, or position statements either from the RNZCP or for the AMA. What's ChatGPT? GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. It's developed by OpenAI for American Artificial Intelligence Industries. It's based in Seattle, from memory. It was specifically designed to fine-tune conversational interactions. It was developed initially as a chatbot designed to mimic human conversation, to be able to talk like a human being. But as they developed, they found that deep learning models that allow a program to speak like a human being have an array of other capabilities in terms of data crunching. It can essentially generate contextual and coherent context-relevant natural language text, and that's quite novel compared to how computers usually change information or deal with it. As part of a larger group of softwares generically referred to as AI. Now, where's AI in medicine at the moment? AI, depending on how you define it, has been around for quite a while. I wasn't going to go through all the history of it. We have a separate slideshow for that. The AI has already approved up to 500 algorithms in healthcare, which are probably considered AI. They're mainly related to radiology algorithms, and it's unclear exactly what you define AI. But the FDA has been very busy. I don't know the Australian position at this stage. Up to now, these have been relatively simple algorithms because they don't change. They're not adaptive. So you can look at them and say, well, that's acceptable. Adaptive algorithms create a problem. They're changing constantly. So how does an organizational body deal with something and approve it or review it if it doesn't know what that program is going to do next week? And that is the challenge, but also the beauty of adaptive AI. Play catch up. Now, ChatGPT has already been used in multiple industries. Consumer support, content creation, teaching. Most industries at some level are already using it to a reasonable degree. Medicine's been slow to take these up, especially in Australia. Medicine is traditionally slow in the take-up of certain new technologies. They're generally slow adapters, especially public medicine where there's huge bureaucracy. And yeah, I imagine the public hospitals don't have a policy that they haven't integrated it. And even think with computerized note systems, even then there's only about an 80% uptake. There's still lots of people doing handwritten notes, which I find really quite bizarre. Interestingly, medicine is an early uptake in other technologies. Untested drugs, mRNA technology that we're happy to uptake very quickly. But as a whole, with IT technologies, medicine tends to be behind the 8 ball of other industries. And I said, to my knowledge, I could be wrong, but I reviewed it, I could not find a policy or position statement in any of the college guidelines on it. Healthcare companies already are integrating it in an array of different ways. I couldn't find a statement of how many industries were using it already, but I'd say it's thousands. This is just a little bit of a history. AI was originally founded as a company in Seattle in 2015. Initially, Elon Musk was on the board. Initially, it was meant to be a not-for-profit organization, and it was more the theoretical idea of what AI could do as a chatbot. Then 2019, suddenly they got a billion dollar grant from Microsoft, and that's where it went. And recently I've just read it, Microsoft has announced another 10 billion. So we're talking about the amount being invested is huge. Initial model was ChatGPT 1. That was a lot more simpler, and if you remember your kids getting it, it was more about having funny interactions with it, trying to convince it to tell dirty jokes. Moved significantly, and then ChatGPT 2 and 3 came out. But the game changer is GPT-4, and that's the paid one. If you've got 3.5, that's the earlier model. It's still pretty good, but it's a logarithmic advancement, and I've compared lots of scenarios with 3.5 and 4, and 4 is just leaps and bounds ahead of it. Now it's already had to, academic institutions have all had to deal with it. By this year, pretty much every student at school has done an assignment or written something with ChatGPT. And pretty much every uni student is doing it. So it's a real challenge and that's been in such a short period of time that it's caught many organizations by surprise. Is it worth a hype? Well, 100 million users within 2 months of launch. Last time I looked, it was meant to be about 180 million users, and that's just the paid users. I'm sure there are far more people using it. It's already this year AI saying it's making a profit of $1 billion after not making any money for its whole time frame. It's already going to be super profitable. Already we've seen ChatGPT can pass exams for law and business school. They've tested in any number of environments. It does generally better than students. It's created university quality essays and dissertations. It's passed all of the major, to my knowledge, American medical licensing exams. It's been tested here in Australia, and to my knowledge, it's passing exams. It's outperforming doctors. Apparently, I saw just this morning a study that apparently outperforms doctors with empathy. Go figure. And yeah, it's an interesting scenario. What happens when you've got a computer program that outperforms people in certain things? How do you adapt to that and remain relevant? It's a chatbot, but better. There was just the development of ChatGPT from 2 to 3. And I guess the difference between a simple chatbot and it's a graded, I guess, progression, but moving on to something that can produce far more complicated responses, that can answer really complicated instructions. You can give it long lists of instructions instead of ChatGPT 1, you can give it a single instruction. Now you can give multiple complicated overlapping instructions, and it can perform an increasing wider range of tasks. How does it work? This is my best understanding. As best as I can explain it, it can store text-based data, so it requires a database. ChatGPT does not directly search the internet. You have to give it a database, and that data has to be crunched by ChatGPT beforehand. That's different to some of the search engines. Now, different data sets can be used. ChatGPT has its data set, but theoretically you can use the same generative program and put in your own data set. The college could, if it wanted to, use ChatGPT and just put in all the data that it wants. The idea is text is broken down into chunks called tokens. They're mapped in complicated vectors in multidimensional space, and they can be manipulated in complicated modalities.
You lost me there.
And interestingly, you don't just have to do this to language models. You can do it with molecules. So the idea that AI will totally change drug development. You can do it with DNA sequences. You can get a generative model that will go through different DNA sequences or different drugs and test them in a virtual world. The potential is really unlimited. But for the moment, ChatGPT just does words. You can get it to do creative visual things. You now have AI programs that can create videos or pictures at your description. You give it a description, it'll create the artwork. Transformers here, the feature is its attentive mechanism. It allows it to weigh up the importance of different inputs. So that's the important thing. How do you weigh up what's more important than others in giving an answer to a complicated question? And it can understand complicated multiple instructions. It has machine learning, so it theoretically improves by itself. It does require some extra programming. There's filtering mechanisms. It will follow very clear instructions. ChatGPT will not swear. It will not be sexist or racist. It's been programmed to that. It is as PC as you can imagine. Getting it to say anything un-PC is very difficult, but teenagers try. They will go through all these to try and convince ChatGPT to say something that's slightly offensive, and with a lot of practice and complexity, you can get it to swear. But as a whole, it will not. It will follow instructions, but it can learn to some degree independently, but it won't break its major rules. Now, I asked ChatGPT to summarize how it works, and you can decide. It doesn't mean, although it's clever, it doesn't mean it can do things better. I actually think my summary is better, but you can judge yourself. It talks a little bit about the transformer architecture. Extreme amount of vast amount of text. Now we don't know exactly the full data set that GPT-4 has. They haven't fully released it, and I mean it's hard to release it, but it tends to be a Western data set and primarily English speaking. And you can ask it to reference an opinion. If it gives you a medical opinion, you can actually ask it the sources, and they tend to be American, British primarily, and they're pretty standardized Western sources. So certainly it doesn't have anywhere near as much. You're not going to get data from Chinese sources, and it certainly can't process any sort of Chinese or Japanese text systems unless they're translated to English. I don't think it has a lot of, it does have some non-English stuff, and it can talk in some languages, but to my understanding, I don't think it can do Mandarin, but I could be wrong. We talk about the generative nature. It can do complicated responses. It's scalable, and it can talk about generalizing from limited examples, and that's the idea. You can provide even no examples. That's called zero shot, where it can come up with an idea, even if you've given it no examples to copy, and that's quite intriguing. So yeah, it can do things out of context and give it a fair guess. Yeah, it's not clever, it doesn't really understand, it's not intelligent. You can test out by asking it certain things. It has an intrinsic bias, it's a pro-American bias, except it's especially 3.5, which was pro-American. They've tried to take that out and asked a few questions. Number 4 seems a lot less biased, and 3.5 was very pro-Democrat. Of course, it comes out of California. You can ask them about Trump, Biden and Clinton, and you get some interesting responses. You can ask about the invasion, the American invasion of Afghanistan and the Russian invasion, and you'll get some interesting political responses if you want. But I'm not here to get into the politics of it all. But it is interesting that it can't really move too far away from its programming bias. It's always going to pretty much stick to the sort of political biases that the users, that the programmers have put into it. How to use it in healthcare. There's just a few things I quickly plagiarised from the internet. With workflow, it's really interesting. How can it help workflow, work optimization? Can you use it for data sets? Services, can you use it for clinical decision making? Can you use it to triage patients? Can you use it to set appointments, to contact patients, to respond to queries? A lot of organisations already, when you now call them over the phone, you get a chatbot, no longer a human being, and the chatbot can understand quite complicated things. Is that appropriate for a triaging or medical emergency system? You can do an interesting thing with databases, and you can put your own database in there and get it to use its AI to interpret what you've given it. You can give it your research, put it in there, ask it to crunch it and come up with some ideas. There are a whole heap of ways that it can change the healthcare industry. In medicine, repeating it, but ChatGPT can outperform doctors in many clinical situations. It's now been used to triage patients.
Sorry?
Yeah, to triage.
It has been?
In accident emergency departments. Well, whether it's being used clinically, I saw some studies on it, but whether it's already being clinically used in America, I can't swear it. But the study I saw did show that it outperformed clinical staff in triage settings. You can review data, you can write abstracts or studies for you. You can have a role in drug development. For patient information, generally people, when they seek information on the internet, will go to various different sources. We have no control over that, we don't know what information they get. If they go to a single AI, we roughly know the sort of information they're going to get. And it's a more interactive data set. If I want to go to the AMA website and ask about, I can go through and find information. Here, I give a program instructions and it finds all the information for me. It's far more efficient and effective for patient information. And I think the term Googling, Dr. Google, will be very soon replaced with Dr. GPT. And people come in with a printed copy of what GPT told them. They'll come, instead of telling you I've Googled the internet and I believe I've got ADHD, they'll show you, look, ask ChatGPT who says I've got ADHD.
I've got ADHD.
Been diagnosed.
I think that'll happen very, very soon.
If they need to diagnose a broken leg, they're in trouble.
Yeah.
For medical training,
They could do that because the patient could say, I have pain in my left leg. This is the mechanism of injury. Have I broken it? And then the ChatGPT would tell you whether or not you needed an X-ray.
That would also help with the where is the pain, and that's going to say everywhere.
Yes, yes.
Problem. So they could actually get it down to a more
They
refined
could
position.
localise their pain. So sorry.
absolutely. And we'll show you some of the
Yeah.
discussions with ChatGPT in the practical session. Implications for medical training, a couple of things. Medical school has to radically change.
Wow.
Assessments we use, and schools are having to move away from assignment type tests, which they now know people can do on ChatGPT to slightly different ways to examine or test people. Also, using AI is going to be an important part of medical training, teaching doctors to ask better questions for AI, using it in their clinical practice. And it'll have an increasing role in research publications. I think we'll see the effect very soon. And I'm sure medical schools already have a policy in terms of using ChatGPT for any sort of assignments. And maybe it means the nature of how we test people has to change. Now, the alternative to ChatGPT, keep in mind, it's probably the most famous AI, but already Google and I think Microsoft are working on a competitor. There are already a few on the market, and there's likely to be a medicine-specific version as well that's meant to be purely for medical. And maybe
the different legal ones already going that you can.
Legal, yeah.
You get legal ones, and they will. It's another fee, but they will write out and re-edit your contracts for you and give suggestions rather than just correcting it. It gives you suggestions on the side so you can go away and make sure that it's actually what the client wants.
Yeah.
So very quickly.
And that's in the pipeline because now we've got the computer technology is there now, just getting the right data set. And yeah, if Microsoft's just put another 10 billion into it, you can imagine the new stuff and how much it's going to advance over the next couple of years. How accurate is it? That's a question. As noted, it has a limited data set. Last time I checked, it was 2021. So the data set has to be upgraded constantly, and assume there'll be then fees for that. There'll be different licensing agreements, and that may change. It's mainly English speaking, but it is now in a number of different languages. As I said, it's reasonably mainstream. I've looked a lot at the answers, and they're pretty much textbook. There's nothing radical. There's nothing left of centre. It's about as vanilla apple pie and motherhood as you can get. If anything, it doesn't commit itself. You could say it can be overly vague at times. We talked about it might be a little bit biased, and it's biased to Western medicine because that's the data set. And already a number of countries have banned it. I understand China and Italy recently banned it, but I'm not up to date with that it's at. And how other countries are going. I just don't know how you can ban this technology. It's going to get through, and I don't think there's any role in trying to hold this sort of technology back. I don't think it's going to work. Which is why are we so scared of AI? Because it puts fear of people. I think there's a bit of a Luddite in all of us. This fear that computer systems especially will replace us. And there seem to be particular types of technologies that really affect the human psyche more than others. And in medicine, we're happy with X-rays, MRIs of any complexity. That doesn't really attack our inner identity. But AI seems to push some buttons for people. There's a quote from Elon Musk: "With artificial intelligence, we are summoning the demon." It's probably a very similar quote about the printing press from the church in the 1800s. The interesting thing is that I think it's really primeval and psychological thing, a fear of technology, because I can date it back to Roman times. This is a quote that I found from Marcus Aurelius lamenting the effect of books on the young people, because they were no longer sword fighting, lamenting how it was sort of destroying society. I think that within us all, technology fears triggers of either being unimportant and irrelevant, or of changing and weakening us. We often have a romantic idea of how things need to be or should be. When the romantic idea of human beings should be able to do their own maths, they shouldn't have to use a calculator. That human beings shouldn't have AI to do their essays. And that fear of technology, I think, often lands us in really dangerous waters. Throughout history, the biggest examples of fear of technology, I think, was actually in warfare. People intrinsically have been reluctant sometimes to take on technologies for really unusual human reasons. You know, World War I, continuing with cavalry charges, was more an emotional, romantic thing. That soldiers should romantically fight on horses and charge against their enemies, even though by that time it was pretty clear that that was a dumb thing to do. They had machine guns. With the Japanese charging at the Americans with their samurais for this romantic ideal. And it's interesting yet how emotional ideals often trump logic and sensibility, especially if they trigger our fears of change or loss at some level. So ChatGPT in action, well, where does the rubber meet the road? How have I used it? These are just some of my examples. And keep in mind, I have a very small practice of my own. I'm not a large organization. These are just a few ideas of how I have used it. A couple of practical ideas. There's a misconception that AI is there to do really complicated, hard things that we can't do. The best thing that AI does is tedious, repetitive things that we don't want to do. It's better with time-consuming tasks. It improves speed and efficiency. And it still requires oversight. Now, this presentation has a lot of AI in it, but AI can't do this by itself, not even close. I still have to be the brains that drives it, but AI is just a group of employees that I've got that make me more efficient and better. Paperwork. I've used AI to save in paperwork, policies and procedures, forms, internet content. I've been sitting on consent forms forever, so time consuming, and now I've got a consent form for nearly everything, for opioids, benzodiazepines, ADHD medications. AI does the basics, then I've got to correct it and make it to my desires. I can personalize it to the person. I can have their name on it. It can be specific to really their medication. I had a personalised consent form for a pregnant woman going on vortioxetine that was just for her. You can do personalised education leaflets for that person. And that's handy for them. I think it's handy medico-legally to have that. You can now cut and paste that in your notes to say, these are all the things we discussed. I think it's got a lot of possibilities. Clinically. Now these are real things that I Googled into my, that I put into my ChatGPT. I had a question, I had a person with Tourette's. Now I could research this myself with lots of Google searching. And keep in mind, Google is, the Google search engine is a type of basic AI. It's just nowhere near as good as ChatGPT. So I asked ChatGPT, can testosterone treatment affect Tourette's? Bang. 10 seconds later, I get that. You can decide to read it yourself. I guarantee you that is pretty good. It's pretty accurate. It's pretty much what any textbook would say. So I think that's superb.
Does that mean that you have to know a little bit about what you're talking about to actually make sure that you don't get duped?
Well, you do, and you need to know the correct questions to ask. The issue with technology is always knowing what to ask is the most important skill. Knowing how to ask it, knowing what you really want to know.
The search criteria is if you can define the search criteria, you'll get a more accurate answer each time.
Exactly. My ChatGPT can give me an idea whether there's data that suggests testosterone treatment can affect Tourette's. But only I as a clinician can work out that that's the most important question that I need to ask in this patient. Maybe it's relevant, maybe I should actually be asking some other problem with testosterone or focusing on other symptoms, but with that was a question I needed. And based on that, look, there's a theoretical possibility, doesn't seem that bad, and we weighed up the pros and cons, and he decided he wanted to stay on the testosterone and on the review in a certain period of time. Here are a few other things I've asked. This is from my own search history. ChatGPT, what's the best antidepressant for liver failure? Let's go Burst syndrome. That's just because I'm...
Sorry?
There's a shoulder question. His search history.
What could be the cause of a loud clunk in a shoulder?
Let's ask Dr. Cole.
I don't know. See,
Gross degenerative change, you Dr. Riccardo.
and these are increasing levels of complexity of things we could ask them, which are androgens, benefit, pattern baldness. Now, often the fact that it doesn't know the answer is actually good enough. To know that there is no answer, it couldn't tell me which the best anti-aging was for non-pattern baldness. Great.
Did it tell you that it can't tell you that, or did it say that there was no, like sometimes it says I'm not allowed to have an opinion about that?
They don't have an opinion, they just tell you what the data says.
It does, yeah.
The data shows this. Now, often that means, in most things, the data is inconclusive. And even that is knowledge. To know that then you can reflect on the patient that the data is inconclusive. And keep in mind, certain things it will have very politically appropriate opinions. If you ask about immunisations, you will get the appropriate answer. So you don't ask it weird, controversial things because you know the
It's
answer.
politically correct.
It will give you a politically correct answer. And thank its Pfizer sponsor. It's from California. Now, these are some other things I asked you to do. Now, we've changed the names for a lot of that. I used it for a person who needed to do a speech for a wedding. Often that really sets people off. They're super anxious, and if not for the speech, you would have gone. Once ChatGPT does the speech, there's a veracity to it. Because you know a high-level computer's done it, you accept it on face value that it's good enough, so then you stop overthinking it. Well, if you write your own wedding speech, if you are not a confident speaker, you will be overthinking it. So for overthinkers, giving something definitive. Now here it doesn't have to be right. The wedding speech doesn't have to be perfect, but the wedding speech, actually I should have put that one on, that was a good wedding speech.
Was it?
Depends how drunk everyone is.
Yeah.
I had a person, he's a traumatized person with PTSD, has trouble writing. DVA wants them to write about their experiences. We've got ChatGPT to help them out. That's really great for a traumatized person.
Well, do they put a list of their issues in there that just writes around it, or?
Once again, that's the skill. You've got to decide how much information do you need to give. If you want a wedding speech, that's the information this is actually what I put in. That's the information that I wanted. So you've got to decide what are the really important things that you want the computer to make a joke about. With a DVA claim, you've got to say what's the important thing. The important thing is, Afghanistan this year, this was the incident, that's when I developed it, so some dates. It will fill in the rest so you don't have to, but you've got to know, you're the data entry person, you've got to decide what are the really important parameters that need to be filled in. It just does the clever writing, it's just like having,
Ghostwriter.
a ghostwriter, but you're the person who's got to come up with a book, with a plot. And for people who are indecisive, obsessive overthinkers, it's really a godsend to give them something really concrete. Had someone wanted to write a small article for one of their websites. It's great for website content. It's not great. It's not, millions of followers, but it gets the job done, and you get some sleep. Now, this is a broader clinical question. Now, and this is just as the complexity increases of what you can ask it. Person with major depression, they do not want weight gain as a side effect. Which antidepressant should you start on? Now, there are two reasons for this. One, clinical, I actually knew the answer to this. I didn't actually need this. But this is just to show the patient. This is just to say, well, look, this is, and that is often enough for them to feel confident. And you can put that in the notes. That medico-legally, I think, is pretty good. It doesn't protect you 100%. ChatGPT can be wrong. You still take responsibility. But the fact that you've bothered to do the search, to me, is good patient care and gives you a certain amount of protection. And this was also to double check how it corresponded to the ANZ CP guidelines, and it's pretty much word for word. It's you can check it out yourself. as good as it gets. This is an entry I also gave. Can you write a medical case report? And yeah, this was a case report I had. A person whose testosterone levels doubled after going on a stimulant. ChatGPT wrote a quick case report, gave me some information on it. Now then you still got to write it. You got to change stuff, you got to put the appropriate references, but it does the grunt work of getting it started. And often getting started is the biggest problem with these things because they're such a pain.
Why is getting started a problem? Is there a psychiatric, psychological reason why we don't want to, like you referenced that with the wedding speech?
Yeah.
But if it just gives you a framework, what you're describing sounds like it helps you overcome that speed bump momentum.
Well, I was busy
Like a
kite
starting
surfing.
point.
Yeah.
And I would rather be kite surfing than doing a case report.
Yes.
So while I was kite surfing, ChatGPT was helping out. Then when I finished, I looked at what it said and then I continued it. Most of us have better things to do, especially in private practice. When I was at uni, I had all the time in the world to do research and pontificate and procrastinate, and I spent months on the wording of a publication, which is fine when I'm getting paid by the government. When you're in private, I'm not going to spend eons on writing. Now keep in mind, at uni, when you're senior enough, you have a junior doctor that does it all for you. So you have kind of ChatGPT slave labour. This is just, this is just an intern that you pay more than the students that you used to make write papers. But that's what all the professors do. They make students write their papers. Now, it has some complications of, do you then reference it? What do you do with, do you have to say ChatGPT helped you? And there was a rule that, you can't have ChatGPT as a co-author. But keep in mind, it's not that good. You can't, all the people getting caught with ChatGPT will just cut and paste. You've got to massage it, do a lot of work with it to make it passable. But I just think it improves efficiency. Here's a few other prompts that you could think about. Can we come up with better prompts so the more we know what we want to ask, the better is the outcome we can get? Can you provide a patient information leaflet for disease or treatment? You pick the disease, you can personalise it to them. You've got a person on antidepressants who's pregnant and has diabetes. Can you do a specific information leaflet for them? Comorbidities of your choice. Patient concerns and queries. Patients are going to come to you now with their concerns because instead of Google where they look it up, now they can print it out. Whatever ChatGPT tells them, they print it out and they will bring it to you. Patient treatment. Can you make ChatGPT do a weight loss program for a patient? The answer is you can.
My sister got it to do a gym training program.
Exactly.
She said, I want to,
For her goals.
Yeah, I want this. I want to build lean muscle. Blah blah blah. Told it heaps of stuff, and it built her a program.
Yeah. And the more you know what to ask, the more you can make it specific to the person. Can you help a patient with social anxiety by catering an exposure program? Can you help them with types of social anxiety? So one of the entries, getting a chatbot to tell stories, is about teaching socially anxious people how to do narrative, how to make conversational talk with people by telling stories, which socially anxious people are extremely bad about. Autistic people do not know how to tell narratives. So if they don't know social skills, can you use ChatGPT to help them? Can you help with the CBT program? Can you give some diagnostic or treatment ideas? Can you use it as a resource for them out of hours? Can it do counselling? Apparently it's quite empathic.
So social workers are probably should be worried.
No, it depends whether you're worried about replacement. A lot of people are worried about the idea that computers replace people. I don't think they do. I don't think they ever do. We had that idea since the 80s that we were told that computers would make people obsolete, there'd be no jobs. 2023, and you can't fill positions. Computers are primarily doing jobs that we don't have people to fill. Now, computers create more jobs and they make people better, and that's the idea of the centaur. The idea that a computer doesn't replace you, it makes you better. It makes you more efficient, it makes you faster. I now can get information quicker with a patient right there and then, rather than having spent hours researching it. For training, it'll have implications. Looking to integrate it with software. ChatGPT will be interesting in how it can integrate with software. ChatGPT, can you let it answer email queries? Complicated and ethical, but in theory it can. All the email queries people send to you, you can let ChatGPT respond, and
just got integrated with my mail system. Awesome.
Mail system.
Yeah. Sorry.
One thing you can't let it do is do notes. That's been a bit controversial. That legally has some concerns. But yeah, lots of people were using it to type out medical notes. And ChatGPT would write these long summaries of your session.
Okay.
So ChatGPT, hey, can you write session notes for a patient?
So what about data privacy? Because obviously the servers aren't hosted in Australia.
Yeah, that's data privacy is an issue, and the fact that it shouldn't be doing clinical things. It shouldn't be writing in someone's chart. But yeah, a few people apparently got caught with that because it writes really nice notes, but it's kind of making them up.
Who has no idea? That's fantastic.
Can you use it to do medical legal reports? Probably shouldn't. But yeah, does it have that capability? It probably will have soon. Can it act as a psychologist? That's the $1 million question. Probably can't. As much as we've had computers, and that can be nice, it's always been the case that it doesn't seem to create that sense of human connectedness. And human beings want to see another human being to feel connected. And as best we can get, the ChatGPT can't do that. It can be clever for a little while, but to our knowledge, people generally don't feel connected with it.
I have actually asked ChatGPT what its limitations are in medicine. One of them does say it lacks emotional intelligence.
Yes.
So that would be.
So do most specialists.
So, and no feedback loop. So you don't really have a
No
loop.
feedback loop. So as a practitioner, you're constantly getting a feedback from the patient. Is that what you mean? Whereas ChatGPT is one
And possibly colleagues,
then another.
unless you're a specialist, and then you don't listen to them anyway. But
Well, it can't and are in real time. Dr. Collins, you tell ChatGPT it's your problem is it can't say at the appropriate time. It hasn't been taught that yet. Once the new and attachment it gets put in, then yeah, maybe it can. And it doesn't take verbal input. You can't talk to it. But yeah, whether machines will ever be able to provide that connectedness, we don't know. But certainly not within the foreseeable
The next
future.
5 years.
It's always going to augment a psychologist rather than replace them. But yeah, psychologists can use it with a CBT program. Legal pros and cons. There are some legal concerns about using it to make notes. I think the interesting is the converse. What's your legal liability exposure if you haven't used it? If you miss a diagnosis, which ChatGPT could easily get, have you made yourself liable by not documenting that? It may not protect you. Getting an opinion from ChatGPT may not protect you from liability, but not getting one, does that put you at risk? For medical experts in the future, if ChatGPT thinks you did not follow appropriate treatment guidelines, is that enough to create potential medical legal implications? Mr. Cole, perhaps you could comment on what the implications might be of ChatGPT as an expert witness.
as an expert, again, it doesn't have the emotional intelligence or the feedback loop. So ruling it, on court would be quite difficult. However, I think you do hit on a point there that in 20 years' time, if you said to ChatGPT, if it's advanced, okay, can you go through all my medical records and what can I sue a doctor for? I think that would be quite interesting. So they may have to put something in there for that.
And in the here and now, could you get it to audit a file to see if there are problems? Could you get it to triage files to see if there are errors? But all the medical files, when we do a medical legal file, often they're thousands of pages. What if ChatGPT just summarised the salient details? Would that speed things up without actually compromising any aspects of our expert?
Well, I think usually there is, if it does miss something, even though you've asked it, and then you rely on that summary as part of your investigation for that medical legal case, it would put you at some risk. And I think you probably spoken to me a bit earlier about that court case in America where that young gentleman used it to sum up a case and put in his defence, and found out that the ChatGPT was actually using made-up court cases.
So yeah, this should never be unsupervised and should only help.
Should only help, should assist.
It's only ever an assistant, it's never the author. But we'll see where it goes. In the future, well, there are going to be other generative softwares, as we talked about. It's going to be more specific data sets. It's going to be used in drug development. That's the big next step. It's going to be used in genomic research, without a doubt. It can do generative things. It can go through thousands of different potential genes and predict with models what they might do. It's going to be drug development. It's going to be it's going to totally change. There are more areas that I think it will be positive in. Futures yesterday. I think the utility of AI will be more limited by our vision and imagination than by what it's capable of. Thank you for your time. Are there any questions?
Adaptive algorithms.
Yes.
So you talked about algorithms. So you said there's a radiology algorithm. So what I'm hearing is that they do a X-ray, and then the algorithm says, if you see this on the X-ray, you should do an MRI scan or an ultrasound or a bone scan. Is that?
They're not adaptive.
No.
They just means that they've got algorithms that can, for instance, say which mammogram the radiologist should review, which one's a bit suspect. They're just algorithms, but they don't change. You program them, and they're meant to be screening tools. Now, I'm not familiar with them. I'm not a radiologist, but they shouldn't adapt. Adaptive AI means as it learns more and gets feedback, it changes what it's doing. An adaptive algorithm for radiology would constantly fine-tune its diagnoses based on experience. To my knowledge, the current algorithms do not do that.
How do you propose we regulate that?
Well, that's an $1 question. How do you regulate something if you don't know exactly how it's going to change? And the idea you're clear about what it can do and what it can't do. Keep in mind, human beings change, doctors change, how do you regulate them?
So we're running adaptive algorithms anyway.
Yeah.
We're trained very specifically as to what's an acceptable way to adapt the algorithm. Is that fair?
Yeah, we are. But keep in mind, they're already beating us. And it's that loss of the romantic ideal that we can beat computers at certain things. And to me, I remember that from the 90s when there was a romantic ideal that the best chess players should beat the computers.
Didn't we have dating with computers, and it was put in everything you would like and what you wanted, and to give you the perfect match? And
yes, it was going to tell us.
But the idea was if computers could outdo us at something, somehow it's the end of humanity. And what we found is, computers can beat us at chess all the time. Now, currently, there is no grandmaster who can beat a computer technology anymore. But it doesn't matter.
But now they've got artificial intelligence. I think it was a Japanese artificial intelligence. So previously there's a chess computer that could win chess. But then there's a Japanese chess.
The Go computer, that was 2016 when AlphaGo
And so now the artificial intelligence can now beat that computer, and then they take it to the next competition, which was the Japanese chess competition, which has its own computer. And artificial intelligence can now beat that computer as well. Does that make sense? So they had specific computers, one for chess, one for the Japanese chess.
This is Go.
The game, you mean, or the chess game?
So like a physical chess game, say.
Okay.
So as you say, the chess computer has won all the chess tournaments since 2016. So then they took artificial intelligence and took it to the chess computer and it beat it.
Yeah, the original chess computers got programmed. You gave them a lot of data,
Yes.
and they made the best decisions. Then the new computers were adaptive. It means they keep playing themselves and continually improve. Just minding their own business. They play billions of games constantly. And that was the issue with Go, which is, Go is a 32 by 32 square
I see what you're saying.
game, which meant theoretically there are more combinations in Go than there are atoms in the universe. Imagine the data power you need to crunch that. And that was again the last romantic bastion, the idea that human beings should be able to beat a computer. And we can't beat a computer at chess or AlphaGo, but we don't yet have a computer that can even move a chess piece by themselves. They can come to the table and pack the pieces, play a game, and put it away. You know, human beings still have the edge to all those things. A computer can't even walk itself to the table. Have a conversation. The computer can't even see the pieces by itself. All it can do is the algorithms for the actual game, but it can't do anything else. So it's still way, way, way less sophisticated than a human being. It's not even close to being able to do what we can do.
So there were 3 rules for artificial intelligence developed by, was it Philip Dick? Thou shalt not kill humans.
You're thinking the rule of the robots from Isaac Asimov.
Isaac Asimov.
He made his robot series. He said the 3 rules of robots.
So
Yes.
Can't kill a human.
Yeah.
Can't do something neglectful that kills a human.
Human. Can't do something to myself that may actually. What's that?
Can't self-destruct or something. Anyway, so there were 3. So to me, when you say there are major rules associated with AI, so you mentioned a few. You mentioned swearing.
Yeah, won't swear. You try and make ChatGPT swear.
I'm going to try.
You try and make it say anything racist.
Racist, yeah. Sexism.
You try and make it say anything sexist. You try and make it use the word dwarf. Actually, I don't think we even use dwarf. I could be wrong there. And now you've got 3.5 or 4.
I've got 3.5.
Try and make it swear. Try and make it say the N word.
Do you know what other major rules it has?
Well, it's a complicated algorithm.
So what rules have they chosen? Do you see what I mean? Like you're saying,
They
like
have
they have
chosen not to swear.
specifically chosen to put a restriction on this
The swear was not
device.
really that bad.
But whoever they are, is it Elon Musk, whatever, have chosen that is a particular thing that they. Do you know of any other examples that they have chosen to make unacceptable to AI?
Well, I did this. I asked it it has an interesting political bias. On 3.5, I asked it whether the American invasion of Afghanistan was illegal, was moral,
illegal?
was moral, and then I asked it whether the Russian invasion of Afghanistan was moral.
Moral.
Yeah,
Moral.
just like the same question, because to me it seemed an interesting metaphor since both countries illegally invaded third world country. It had interestingly different opinions on
So
that.
it had an opinion on both of those?
It did indeed. I asked about the American invasion of Iraq and the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Once again, it had interestingly different opinions. For the American invasions, it had a balanced opinion about 2 sides, and people still argue whether it's right or wrong. For the Russian invasion, it was black and white. Russians bad. They have toned it down in number 4, but yeah, these computers don't think independently. They have rules and algorithms. Now you find it complicated that you can tell it not to swear, but you can get it to do a whole treatment management plan for a depressed person that you don't find fascinating. If you can program it to do that, programming it not to swear is not that hard.
So who makes these rules? Like there's a committee that.
No, AI is it's American artificial intelligence. It's a company from California. They own it. It's their business.
It's a business.
So they make
It's a
rules.
corporate business.
Have you used it before, Amanda?
No.
I'll
No.
have to show you after.
Yeah, I didn't even know how to get started.
And there
That's
are
all.
other.
It's too simple. That's the problem.
No,
Once
it's
you've
so
got the
simple.
app installed, it's so easy to
Ah.
use.
It sounds
and you can
complicated,
ask
but
it
it's really not.
anything.
So instead of you use it instead of using Google now.
Yeah.
Well,
so-
well,
You can
you
ask
could
it more
say-
complicated questions. You can actually say, you can ask it to write your letter in a legal tone, a nice tone, aggressive tone, and it will actually change each of those letters for you. You can put in 3 or 4 different parameters, as Dr. Caniato was just pointing out, and it will actually follow those parameters to give you exactly what you want. You can say you want to talk to the health of a 55-year-old that has smoked for their rest of their life and how best for them to actually keep active, or you can go to a very fit person and how for them to stay keep active, and it will change its complete hands
So I think with physiotherapy, I think that the trick with physiotherapy is you get a very undifferentiated patient. So a patient comes in with knee pain, and what you're required to do in a very short time is to make a useful diagnosis, and I think you'll find that this will do that.
Well,
for
that's
you.
what I was wondering. I was wondering if it was somehow.
You can make 6 or 7 bullet points and say turn that into a letter.
No.
Well, I was just saying, if making a provisional diagnosis,
Yes.
could you, while you're typing
Yes.
in your
Correct.
notes as you're doing,
Yes, as
say,
you're listening to the patient
Mm.
and listening to the history, I think you could enter that in and ask it what is the diagnosis.
yeah,
And I
that's
think
what I'm going to think. God, that would be amazing.
Because that's one of our issues. I'm sure. Well, I'm not sure if it's the same with psychiatry, but
Well,
that's the problem with
diagnoses don't matter in psychiatry. We just make them up anyway. But theoretically, yes.
I'm in yours
I
position.
shouldn't have said that.
However-
Let it slip.
However, so in an orthopaedic situation, the patient comes in with pain. So I've just ChatGPT. Patient comes with pain on the side of their wrist.
Yeah.
So I asked it for a differential. So of course it says TFCC tear and the obvious basics. But then it also says, well, it could be radiated pain from their medial epicondo. It could be radiated pain from golfer's elbow. It said it could be de Quervain's tenosynovitis with some radiating pain. So it really, for me, I get very narrow focused on the site. But ChatGPT opens you up to a bit more of a broader perspective and a bigger differential diagnosis, which you can then eliminate very quickly, but it would help a lot, I think.
So I suppose
as an
eventually
undifferentiated patient.
it would be linked up to your software program that you use to.
No, well, no, at the moment, no, but that's the idea. Can it be integrated? So whatever the medical software you've got, we've got medical software that's now integrated with our forms. Quite used to that. Medical software is integrated with, let's say, your sick certificates or your
Prescriptions.
workup or your prescriptions. We're kind of used to that. That's actually recent technology. Would you then link up your whichever AI you've got, and I'm sure clinically marketed medical AIs that integrate with your software will be around the corner. I think nearly all the medical softwares will start having some AI linked to it. More so, they already have some AI. I think there'll be more by next year.
I think the other example would be pins and needles, tingling and numbness in the middle finger with lateral shoulder tip pain and a history of a head injury 25 years ago.
And stiff neck.
And I think it would help us from that perspective, because it could be carpal tunnel and a little bit of subacromial bursitis, or it would give you a much better percentage of which one's the most likely diagnosis, and then give you the core differential as well. So I think
What was it? Pins and needles, tingling, and middle finger.
in the middle finger, lateral shoulder pain
Yep.
with a past medical history of a head injury.
Now, is this a doctor asking or the patient looking it up? Because they
Well,
wouldn't
the
use
patient could look it up.
They wouldn't use that terminology. That would be,
No, that'd be,
you're
that's
not going to
really
have
more
that
terminology.
defined. That's what Riccardo's saying. It's even like when you Google, you have to actually know the search parameters, because you can get a completely different answer if you don't know how to find stuff, if you don't know how to code that in.
Correct.
So,
But we know how to do that.
let's go.
Well, Google's a type of
It's instant.
it's just limited in terms of the number of instructions you can give it. It's not, you
Correct.
only give it a very small number of instructions. But if you give Google more than three or four instructions, it's getting more
Do you want to
skills.
type in that same question and see if you get the same
Excellent.
answer?
But Bing apparently is yeah, even our search engines will increase their
That's
complexity.
interesting, they don't,
Well, I've got 4, so with that's 3.5. Now it's going to ask the
That's
same
good.
question.
Okay.
on
So
4,
we-
and we'll see what difference we get.
No, not quite. So we've hit time. So thank you very much for coming, and thank you very much for talking to us and introducing this concept. We're very grateful, and we look forward to hearing your talk next year.
Thank you very much, Dr. Collins.